السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أسعد الله مساءكم بكل خير. محدثكم جمعة بن عبد الله بن خلفان الأخميسي، مدير عام المالية والحسابات والقائم بأعمال مدير علاقات المستثمرين. يسعدنا أن نلتقي بكم في هذه الجلسة الحوارية لتسليط الضوء على النتائج المالية الغير مدققة للنصف الأول من عام 2022. وفي هذا الإطار أتقدم بالشكر الجزيل للهيئة العامة لسوق المال وبورصة مسقط لتنظيم هذه الحلقة الحوارية. سيكون معي في هذه الجلسة من إدارة الشركة كل من الفاضل طارق بن سليمان الفارسي الرئيس التنفيذي للشركة، الفاضل بكرم مونغا مدير عام المخاطر والسيطرة، الفاضلة صفية بن سليمان الربيعي المدير المالي بالإنابة. أود التنويه أن هذه الجلسة لأغراض مناقشة أداء الشركة للنصف الأول من العام، وليس للترويج لاستثماراتنا ومنتجاتنا. هذا وسوف نخصص وقت كافي للأسئلة والمناقشة بعد استعراض الشرائح. لذا أرجو من الجميع تفعيل زر كتم الصوت طوال فترة العرض. أحيل النقاش الآن للفاضل طارق بن سليمان الفارسي الرئيس التنفيذي للشركة لاستعراض نبذة مختصرة عن الشركة الوطنية للتمويل عبر الشرائح المعدة لهذا الغرض. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Jum'a bin Abdullah bin Khalfan al-Khmisi, General Manager of Finance and Operation and the Acting Director of Investment Relations. We are pleased to meet you in this discussion session to shed light on the unaudited financial results for the first half of the year 2022. In this content, we extend our sincere thanks and appreciation to Muscat Stock Exchange and the Capital Market Authority for organizing this session. We will cover this session with me from the executive management, Mr. Tariq bin Sulaiman Al-Farsi, the CEO of the company, Mr. Bikram Monga, GM Risk and Controls, Safiya bin Sulaiman Al-Rabi'i, Acting Financial Controller. I would like to note that this session is for a purpose of highlighting the company performance and not to promote to our products and investments. We will allocate sufficient time for questions and discussion after going through the slides. Therefore, please activate the mute button during the presentation. I will forward the discussion now to Mr. Tariq bin Sulaiman Al-Farsi, the CEO of the company, to give a brief introduction about the company through the coming few slides. Mr. Tariq, تفضل.
شكرا أخ جمعة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. في البداية طبعا يسعدني أن أرحب بجميع الحضور المشاركين في هذه الجلسة النقاشية لعرض نتائج المالية للنصف الأول من العام 2022. وأتقدم جزيل الشكر لجميع منظمي هذه الفعالية، وأخص بالذكر والشكر طبعا بورصة مسقط وبكل أعضائها الكرام. سأبدأ حديثي بنبذة مختصرة عن الشركة الوطنية للتمويل وعن أداء قطاع التمويل التأجيري في السلطنة، بالإضافة إلى النتائج المالية، وختاما طبعا سنتطرق إلى استراتيجية الشركة وتوجهاتها خلال هذا العام. Good afternoon all, and I would welcome you to this discussion session wherein we will briefly cover the various aspects related to our company, industry, financial updates, and our business focus. We will start by giving you a brief overview of the national finance company. Then we will review the leasing finance sector in Oman and the company's financial results for the first half of the year, and conclude the discussions within the company's strategy or the way forward focus points during this year. طبعا تم تأسيس الشركة الوطنية للتمويل منذ 36 عاما لتعمل في مجال التمويل التأجيري في سلطنة عمان لتمويل الأفراد والمؤسسات. كما هو مبين في الشريحة أمامكم، حيث أصبحت الشركة مساهمة عامة في عام 2002 ومنذ 4 أعوام تقريبا الماضية، وتحديدا في عام 2018 كما تعلمون استحوذت الشركة على شركة عمان أوركس للتأجير. الشركة تقود قطاع التمويل التأجيري بحصة سوقية الآن تبلغ 48%، وهذا نسبة عالية جدا مقارنة قبل الاستحواذ. يقع الفرع الرئيسي للشركة طبعا في محافظة مسقط، ويعمل بها أكثر من 300 موظف. نسبة تأمين تتجاوز 90%. The National Finance Company was established in 1987 to operate in the field of leasing finance in the Sultanate of Oman to finance individuals and institutions and small and medium enterprises. It became a public joint stock company in 2002. In 2018, the company acquired another financing company, Oman Oryx. The company leads now the leasing finance sector with a market share of 48%, as we all know. The head office of the company is located in the Governorate of Muscat, and we have almost more than 300 employees, and our urbanization rate now exceeding more than 90%. كما طبعا going back to the chart shareholding distribution تتوزع أسهم الشركة بحسب ما هو موضح في الشكل التوضيحي يمين الشاشة. الشركة العمانية العالمية للتنمية والاستثمار بنسبة 35%، وشركة الهلال للاستثمار يقارب 29%، وتتوزع باقي الحصص المقدرة ب 36% على مجموع 193 مساهم. ويوضح الجدول في الجزء السفلي من الشريحة اللي المنتجات الرئيسية للشركة هي تمويل التجزئة وتمويل الشركات الصغيرة والمتوسطة والشركات وودائع الشركات. The company shares are distributed as shown in these slides to the right of the screen. Ominvest 35%, Al-Hilal about 29%, other shareholders about 36%. The table at the bottom shows the main financing solutions offered by the company: retail finance, corporate finance, and SME and corporate deposits. In this slide نحن نستعرض طبعا في هذا الشريحه رئيس اعضاء مجلس اداره للشركه، ويمثلون طبعا مستثمرين ومساهمي الشركه، حيث يتمتعون بخبرات وافره ومتنوعه والتي ساهمت وتساهم في دفع عجله التقدم للشركه. These are our current board members of the company who represents the company's investors. The board has led with extensive regional and international experience across various industries that support the ambitious path of the company. This slide, we're covering the management team. Of course, I'll introduce my team. Jum'a Al-Khamisi, who's basically with us today, and he just introduced us to the event. Bikram as well. Bikram Monga is the GM Risk and Controls. We have also my deputy CEO Ali Al-Mani and Khalifa Al-Saeed. These are basically the top management in the company. تدار الشركة الوطنية للتمويل من قبل فريق متمكن كما تعلمون، يمتلك خبرات واسعة في مجال إدارة الأموال والاستثمارات في القطاع المصرفي والمالي، والشريحة طبعا أمامكم توضح أعضاء الفريق كما هو مذكور في الصورة. A national finance company is managed by a capable team with extensive experience in the field of banking and financial sector. The slide in front of you shows the members of this team. والآن كما هو موضح لكم، تتواجد الشركة في كافة أرجاء السلطنة بتوزيع جميع المحافظات بعدد 20 فرع متوزع للمحافظات وولايات السلطنة، ونمتلك شبكة عملاء متميزين حيث يبلغ عددهم أكثر من 54,000 عميل، كما يبلغ عدد موظفينا كما ذكرت في السابق أكثر من 300 موظف. This slide shows the company's presence in all parts of Sultanate of Oman to serve our valued customers through 20 branches distributed over the governance of wilayat of the Sultanate. We have a distinguished customers network with the numbers of current customers about 55,000 customers. The number of employees, as I've mentioned previously, is more than 300 employees serving our customers. This slide والآن طبعا نستعرض في هذه الشريحة الجوائز والتكريمات التي حصلت عليها الشركة منذ نشأتها، والتي تعتبر شهادة تقدير للإنجازات التي تحققت خلال مسار الشركة بفضل الرؤية الواضحة لمجلس الإدارة وتوجيهاتها الداعمة، وكذلك الدعم المتميز الذي نحصل عليه من جهات القارضة والتمويلية الأخرى وعملائنا الكرام. الآن أحيل طبعا نقاش الأخ الفاضل جمعة بن عبد الله الخميسي المدير العام للمالية والعمليات للحديث عن الأداء المالي للقطاع والشركة. This slide in front of you shows the awards and honors that the company has received over the years. It is a certificate of appreciation for the achievements that have been achieved throughout the company's path, thanks to the clear vision of the board of directors, the capable management, and the outstanding support we obtain from the regulators, business partners, and our valued customers. I will transfer the speech now to Mr. Jum'a Abdullah Khalfan Al-Khamisi, General Manager of Finance and Operations, to speak about the financial performance of the sector and the company. Jum'a.
أشكر الفاضل طارق بن سليمان الفارسي، وأود التنويه بأن سوف أتناول الشرائح المتبقية من هذا العرض باللغة الإنجليزية فقط، نظرا لطبيعة هذه الشرائح وهي متعلقة بالأرقام والمصطلحات المالية. على كل حال ونحن على استعداد لشرح هذه الشرائح والرد على استفساراتها باللغة العربية في نهاية الحلقة حسب رغبة مستمعون الكرام. I thank Mr. Tariq Sulaiman Al-Farsi, and I would like to note that I will address the remaining slides in English due to the nature of those slides which are related to the numbers and financial terms. However, we are ready to explain and handle the questions in Arabic if any of our listeners wish. Can we move to the next slide? There are 5 finance and leasing companies in Oman with a presence of 40 branches network across the country. The sector is regulated by Central Bank of Oman, and all the companies in the industry are publicly listed in the stock exchange. As you know, non-banking financing sector play an important role to serve the individual and SME to meet their funding requirements as alternative market to the banking sector. As shown in the slide, the sector witnessed a decline in 2020 and 2021 due to the COVID pandemics and the subsequent events in terms of the net investment in leases. However, the market is picking up gradually with a positive outlook to the economic performance in 2022. During the first half of the year, the market grew by 2% to reach at a level of 882 million and expected to grow further toward the end of the year. The industry concentration, as shown in the slides, 42% to the retail sector and 58% to the SME and corporate sector. Next slide, please. This slide shows a snapshot of the market share of the sector in terms of the net investment in leases. National Finance share stand at 47% level, leading the industry by far comparing to other peers. In terms of the industry profitability, National Finance reported 5 million net profit at the first half of the year, which represent 55% of the industry profitability. Next slide, Bikram. This slide shows some key performance indicator of the industry in Oman as a peer comparative. The graph at the top left represent a gross investment in leases, where National Finance lead the market by 40% market share with 473 million gross investment in leases. The graph at the top right represent the residual equity. As you can see, National Finance sit at a solid capital base of 113 million, which support the company growth and sustainable improvements. The diagram in the bottom left of the slides represent the top line figures of the whole industry, where National Finance reported around 23 million revenue top line in the first half of the year. And the graph in the bottom right showed the annualized return on equity of the industry. National Finance reported return on equity of 9.1% to its shareholder, with a positive outlook to grow to a double-digit figures in the foreseeable future. Next slide. After reviewing the industry overall performance, we will discuss now in the coming few slides the key financial updates of national finance as a standalone in the first half of the year. As shown in this slide, if you see the table on the top, the gross investment loans and net financing loan are growing back to 2019 level after 2 years of recession due to the COVID-19 pandemic, with a positive outlook to the economic performance as an overall. The concentration in growing our books is to focus on more salaried retail customer segments and a small collateralized tickets of SME. The non-performing loan is growing due to the slow recovery of the cash flow in the market as a whole. Therefore, the company took a precaution measures and increased the provisioning level to reach to 73% coverage at the end of the year 2021 and 72% as the first half of 2022. We are working in controlling MBA numbers by close monitoring of those numbers and coordinate with our valued customers to ensure smooth repayment in the coming future. The first half of this slide talks about the quality of loan book in our company. Non-performing loan represent 15.5%, which is below the industry level. The management is working in reducing these figures by collection efforts and quality booking. Provision coverage is growing to ensure sustainable performance in the future and take care of subsequent impact of the recent deferrals and restructure. The bottom part of the slide is representing the funding portfolio. National Finance is working on diversifying the funding portfolio. As you can see in the slides, our corporate deposits grow from 17 million in 2019 to reach to 34 million in the first half of 2022, which represent 11% of our funding portfolio. Next slide. This slide summarizes to you once again few KPIs from the balance sheets. The first graph in the top left showing the movement of the gross loan book and net book value from 2018 till the first half of the year of this year. The graph in the top right shows the growth in the net worth and the gearing ratio. The gearing ratio is reduced due to the needs of the growing the book in 2020 and 2021, and now it's moving back to the normal trends, which will optimize the return for our shareholders. The graph in the bottom part represents the funding portfolio mix, and the company is controlling our funding average cost by finding the right mix and diversify to manage the cost and to ensure the funding availability to grow our books. Can you move to the next slide? This slide is showing the main KPI of our income statement. The first graph in the top left represents the movement of the net finance income, operating income, and the net profit for the last 4 years. National Finance maintained a sustainable performance across the years. In the first half of 2022, we reported net profit income of 13 million, the operating income at a level of 8 million, and we reported net profit of 5 million. The second graph in the top right represents the operating cost to income ratio and the earning per share ratio, where the graph in the bottom represents the return on equity and return on asset. Both are the ratios shows the sustainable improvement of National Finance performance across the years with a decent return to our shareholders. With this, I will leave the floor back to Mr. Tariq Al-Farsi, our CEO, to give you a glimpse of our business focus in 2022 and the way forward. تفضل سيد طارق. You are in mute, Tariq.
Thank you so much, Jum'a, for the informative slides. And yes, thank you so much, Bikram. طبعا التركيز على البيع في هذه الشريحه، طبعا حنتكلم عن التركيز على البيع بالتجزئه مقابل المؤسسات الصغيره والمتوسطه والشركات، بينما نحن نواصل كشركه الوطنيه للتمويل توسيع المحفظه الاجماليه لتخفيف عن اي مخاطر مستقبليه. فإننا ركزنا حقيقه على بناء محفظه بيع تجزئه، وتكون بيع تجزئه صحيه، وكذلك تكون بانمائها بطريقه صحيحه كذلك. مع وضع في الاعتبار قمنا ببناء علاقات طبعا قويه مع معارض السيارات، اصحاب معارض السيارات، وكذلك تجار السيارات، وهم ملاك المعدات الرئيسيين والمؤسسات الماليه الاخرى، وكذلك الاستفاده من نقاط القوه لدى شركه وطنيه التمويل في كيانات مجموعتنا الاستثماريه. طبعا الاستفاده الكامله من جميع القنوات الرقميه الموجوده عند في الوطنيه للتمويل، مصادر الاعمال، وتعزيز تجربه العملاء وانتاجيه الموظفين عبر جميع نقاط الاتصال لدينا. تقديم منتجات وخدمات جديده والتركيز على مصادر دخل متنوعه. وفي القنوات طبعا الرقميه concentrating on retail and provides cause me in this slide, while we continue to expand our overall portfolio to mitigate any concentration risk, we focus on building a healthy retail portfolio. With this in mind, we have built strong tie-ups with major vehicle equipment dealers, other financial institutions, and also leverage on the strengths of our group entities. Full utilizations on all digital channels to source businesses and enhance the customer experience and staff productivity across all our touch points, like branches, like e-channels, introduce new products, services, and effective charges recovery. Next slide, please, Vikram. In e-channels، طبعا القنوات الرقميه نمتلك طبعا الحمد لله عده قنوات رقميه فعاله باداره فريق مؤهل وكفاءه عاليه، منها مركز الاتصالات، الموقع الالكتروني، تطبيق الهاتف المحمول، وسائل التواصل الاجتماعي بما في ذلك طبعا الواتساب، واجهزه الخدمات الذاتيه الاخرى. We have several effective digital channels managed by a qualified and efficient team, such as call center, website, mobile application, social media, including WhatsApp, and self-servicing kiosks. Of course, those channels are always been looking at upgrading them, enhancing them as we go forward. Next slide. Way forward، طبعا المضي قدما. في النهايه نود ان نؤكد لكم في الوطنيه للتمويل اننا سنواصل العمل من اجل تحسين اداء الشركه من خلال توسيع الفروع والتوزيع الفروع، وكذلك وزياده قاعده عملائنا وتقديم المنتجات وتعزيز تجربه العملاء باستخدام التكنولوجيا، وكل هذا سيعزز جهودنا مكانه الشركه في هذا القطاع. In the end, at National Finance would like to assure you that we will continue to work towards improving the performance of the company through branch expansions, increasing our customers base and product offerings, enhancing the customer experience using technology, and all this will strengthen our company's positioning in the industry. Now, I will leave the floor for the questions. سأترك الحين المجال للأسئلة. إذا هناك أي أسئلة بما يتعلق بالشركة الوطنية للتمويل. شكرا جزيلا لكم.
Hello?
Mr. Bishan was raising his hand from the beginning, so shall we start with
Yes.
Bishan with questions?
Yeah. Hi, good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for this presentation. This is Bishan Bhalla from Vision Asset Management. I had a few questions. The first one is, you mentioned the financial performance of the company, which looks good, dominant market share. I wanted to understand, you mentioned your coverage ratio as of first half stood at 71.9%. Now, given the backdrop of COVID and how we've just moved, or we're still moving towards a post-moratorium period, how do you see NPL shaping up once the moratorium period completely ends and the cash flows are sort of explicitly stated for all your customers? So how do you firstly see the NPL formation going forward?
I think, Jum'ah, you can.
Yes, I will. See, I mean, first of all, the MBA numbers, as you have show you on the slide, it isn't growing, and I think it's in the whole market, the banking sector and the leasing sector as well, due to the subsequent events of after COVID-19. And if you know, now in the market, still the cash flow cycle is not completed. So we are expecting the market to improve, and the cash flow will improve. We are expecting a little hike of the MBA for the whole sector in 2022. However, we have a positive outlook to the market going forward. So, I mean, we have a precaution. We have grown our provision from 60 levels to 72 levels, which prepare ourselves for the future. Anyhow, you cannot also put more provisions more than that. We need to have the right balance. I will give the mic to Bikram if you want to highlight some things about this also.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
So I think one of the points, Vishen, that you mentioned was that we already the deferral period is over. So a lot of customers, some of the customers who had availed deferral across the banking sector and across the FLC sector, and some of them they've started performing. Some have gone into NPAs, and some of them actually, partly in and out. So I would just like to reiterate what Juma said, that we've got a situation where, the overflow of the funds, or the flow of funds into the market coming from the higher oil prices and favorable economic conditions is expected to be happening in the latter half of 2022 and going forward in 2023. So we would see that there would be a positive development on that effect. But having said that, yes, the sector is going to be seeing a stress going forward. So we'll be expecting some partial increase and some places even decrease in NPAs.
Right. I get that. Appreciate that. The reason I asked is because if you look at coverage ratio, of course, you have increased it from the mid 60 levels to the current 72% level. And if, as you rightly said, the banking and leasing sector is going through some stress and NPAs are moving northwards, effectively, either just to maintain the same coverage ratio, you will have to take more provisions, or the provision coverage ratio will again fall drastically. So both of those factors, have an impact on your financial performance, on your ROEs, on your net profit. So that was the first comment. What is sort of a target coverage ratio going forward for 22 and 23? Could you mention sort of your internal target?
I will take this question if you allow me, Mr. Tahar.
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
So what we feel actually our coverage ratio now at decent for the time being. In addition to our coverage ratio, if you see in the financial statements, the board decided to create a voluntary reserve of 3 million, also to help the provision coverage for the future. So we feel that's our coverage ratio is now at the comfortable zone at the time being. However, if we see the market is also still struggling, that we are actually looking forward to increase our coverage by not creating additional provision, by reducing our MBA, by proper collection and proper execution of the cases which is still pending in the legal system.
Okay, noted. Thank you. Could you comment on your on what sort of loan growth the management sees going forward in this market, given that you've just mentioned there's been an uptake in oil prices and the economy has witnessed some activity on the infrastructure spending side. So what kind of loan growth do you see, for this year and next year?
If I just, I will answer that question for you, Bishan. Well, to be honest with you, in my slides as well, I've covered the area which basically that the company have, of course, through the board, we have decided that we're going to focus mainly into retail sector rather than COSME sector. But there is no harm if we basically have a good opportunity to give, for example, a lending opportunity for any of our COSME sector as well. But our main focus will be, I mean, since for the past last year and this year, and even next year, to be mainly retail, because we need to build our robust portfolio. And as you know, Bishan, that we have, I mean, most of the banks and leasing company have been through a lot of, I would say, a roller coaster time with NPAs and provisioning, and that's why we have basically decided to focus on retail sector rather than COSME. But as I said again, if there's any opportunities to lend for a COSME, of course, we will definitely take it.
Noted. Thank you. Next question is with regard to spreads. How do you sort of see spreads moving forward? Because we've witnessed a slight increase, in the first 6 months. And how do you see spreads going forward?
Juma, I will let this question for you.
Yes, Bishan. Regarding the spread, we see the spread is still comfortable as of now. Yes, you are right. There's a growing increase in the funding cost. The US dollar rates are increasing. However, the Omani Riyal is still at the comfortable zone. So as I mentioned in the slides, by keeping the right mix, we will control our funding cost, and we don't see a challenge in the rest of these years coming up to big hike on the funding side. So our spread will be able to be maintained for this year.
Okay. One of the things I noticed about your second quarter results in particular was the cost of risk was much lower than what we witnessed in the last many quarters. Could you care to comment on that? Because given there hasn't been much change in the risk profile of the sector or in the country in general, but the cost of risk in the second quarter was particularly low. If you could just comment on that.
Juma, please, you can elaborate, and then even Bikram, if you want to add any comments from your side as well.
Yes, Bishan. Actually, you are right. I mean, this is because we have hold additional provisions in the last year, which compensate our position of this year. And you are right. Actually, we see the market is sustainable, and also we notice that the numbers after the deferment not as bad as we expected. Of course, we are looking at it from the conservative point of view. However, the actual results was manageable, and it helps us in releasing some of the provision. I will leave the floor to Bikram to elaborate a little bit on this.
I think I will say that since the beginning of the pandemic, national finance has been conservative in terms of building buffers, and there have been, whether it was built into our ECL models or even, as Juma mentioned, the 3 million voluntary reserve. So there has been a certain amount of additional provisions that have been taken. So it's just a continuation which we had, I wouldn't say slow down, but kept it, used some of those during this quarter. Right, Juma?
Thank you, Bikram.
Yeah. The next last couple of questions. You mentioned your ratio, and it's within the regulatory limit of 5x.
Bishan, can you?
what the ROE is for finance. I mean, you're kind of market leader, that's quite evident. You have been a while to ROE, and sort of what how do you see that going forward, as well as you see enough opportunity to get gearing ratio back to sort of pre-COVID levels of 3.2, 3.5x from the current 2.8 levels. If you just comment on that in ROE.
I don't know. I was so from my side, the voice was not. It was cutting off. It was not clear. I don't know about you, Juma and Bikram.
Yeah, I will take some part which I heard proper, yani. So as you have mentioned, I mean the leverage ratio, it depends on how we are growing our books. In national finance, we see a positive outlook to growing our books, focusing on retails and good quality of SME and corporates. We have a positive outlook that the leverage ratio will grow gradually to reach to the similar levels. Regarding return on equity, it's also the same questions, which, I mean, as far as we create more gearing and booking, of course, it will affect positively the return on equity. So I hope I have heard the last part of your question.
I'll just repeat the last part of the question with regards to ROE was, what is the target ROE? I mean, Om Invest very categorically a couple of years ago stated what they expected the portfolio companies to sort of operate at. And I understand it's been a tough operating environment, but in general, as we move towards a normalized operating environment, what kind of ROE does the management and the shareholder and the board aspire for the company?
Yeah, Bishan, I have mentioned in the slides, so I'll repeat it again. We are very positive in the outlook of the market. We are expecting ourselves to go back to the double digits numbers, which is above 10%, and we will grow from there. We will not take much time to go back to the earlier levels. And we are actually, I will not answer in behalf of Om Invest. And Om Invest actually is our strategic investor, where they are pushing us to the high return for them and for the whole shareholders.
I think, Bishan, would that be? Do you have any other questions?
Any other question?
Thank you so much, gentlemen. That's it for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bishan.
Thank you very much. It was valid questions.
Any other questions from the audience and for the participants? Benjamin, I think maybe you will need to have a closure after maybe 2 minutes from now.
Sorry, may I sort of I had another question. Sorry, if I may ask.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead,
like one of the most important sort of regulatory requirements is capital adequacy. We were well aware of what it is for the banking sector. Now, given the capital adequacy position of national finance, sort of how do you link it with dividend payment? I very well understand what the maximum dividend payment for a banking sector is, but how does it work for the leasing sector? Is it on an EPS level? Is there a certain percentage from the Central Bank of Oman? Or if you could just explain how dividend payments are treated for a leasing company?
Jim, I can handle that question.
I'll invite Bikram to cover this with him. However, I mean, we don't have any requirement on the capital adequacy ratio. However, we are allowed to leverage up to 5 times of our net worth. I will leave the floor to Bikram to a little bit elaborate in the terms of the regulatory requirements.
I mean, thanks, Juma. I think from a regulatory requirement, it's very simple. We are regulated by the Central Bank of Oman, and the dividend towards the end of the year, as declared by the proposed by the board of directors, is then along with the financials is subject to CBO approval prior to the approval by the shareholders. So there is a CBO oversight and approval that is required both for dividends and the financials, like the banks. So nothing different on that sort. So that would remain the same.
Thank you,
The reason
Bikram.
I asked Bikram is for the banking sector, your EPS, your dividend payout is capped at either 60% of adjusted EPS after perpetual payment or 1/3 of share capital. Do you have something similar for the leasing sector, or let's say you're allowed to pay out your entire EPS as dividend subject to CBO approval? Just wanted to understand that part.
Juma, I think you can answer the question.
Bikram is handling this. Actually, yes, we have the same rules. I want Bikram to elaborate also.
No, it's exactly the same lines, Bishan. It's the same regulation for both banks and FLCs for dividend payout. So the regulation is the same. And as I said, again, even if we wanted to pay whatever amount, would still need CBO approval, even if it's within the regulations. And then, of course, the shareholders.
Noted. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Take care.
Thank you, Bashir. Thank you very much. Any other questions from the participants and the audience? We'll give them another maybe 2 minutes, and then we will have a closure of the session, if that's okay with everyone. Question about the dividends, I think, was been asked a few times previously in AGM as well. And I think this is a very important question that was asked by Bishan today. It was clear.
We close the session.
I think we should have a closure now, since we don't have any other questions regarding the national finance in general. So maybe Juma, you can take the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you for everybody for participating in this session. We would like again to thank the CMA to organizing this, and Muscat Stock Exchange for arranging this session, which is very informative. Keep the investors, keep the analysts updated about our financials. We will be happy to answer any questions offline after this session as well. Thank you very much for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Juma and Bikram and everyone. Thank you for the audience for their valuable time as well. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.